Hi there, good evening, and welcome to your Sunday show. It returns to the Four Lads Podcast Network, which we're really happy to be here. My name's Scott Paterson, and joining me as always for this tonight is Dougie Kinnear, who returns after a very slight sabbatical, similar to myself. And we're joined by the boss for the first one of the new season. Stevie joins us. Stevie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Obviously, with Cheryl being on our holidays, you were down to two, and then I was invited to come on, and I really want this to be you guys' thing, and I don't want to come on and kind of ruin the show. So, but it's lovely to be here. Chelsea have just scored against PSG. Cole Palmer. It was an absolute lovely left-footed finish. He's just curled one in the bottom corner. So Chelsea have taken the lead in the Club World Cup final, which is might surprise a few people, but it was a lovely goal.
Big deal, big deal. Dougie, welcome back. Really good to see you, buddy.
Good to be back. Do you know, I'm actually delighted that there's people saying good evening in the chat right now because I was worried. Glorious night. We've not been on for, nearly 12 months. Club World Cup final on. I had the absolute fear that it'd be the three of us talking to each other, nobody watching, but brilliant to have people listening and watching along tonight.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think there's definitely, I'm going to allow for a bit of clunkiness, maybe from myself on hosting duties. However, we will get through it for the next week.
And me, Scott. Do you know, see when we started the introductions and it came up and it showed that I was on mute, I was like, how did I get myself off mute? it's a rustiness right now, but I'm sure we'll pick it back up again very shortly.
Absolutely. Listen, one thing I feel I really want to mention, and a big deal for the Sunday show for this season, is we've managed to secure a sponsor for the season. iSport are looking after the show on a Sunday night when Dougie and I and Cheryl all go live. So we're really chuffed that they've came on board. And of course, they're not alone. We continue to be assisted with our sponsors throughout the season. Rhino Express, Clyde View, Athol Industrial, CSD and Black Roost. They're all involved for the duration of the season and able to support all the good things that we do between now and hopefully a very successful May for Russell Martin's Rangers, which I'm sure we'll cover in quite a bit of distance over the next week. Well, we did have great intentions, Stevie, speaking about current squad and ins and outs. We're going to do a bit about the St George's camp from earlier in the week and do a little bit of our readiness for Panathinaikos next week. However, sure as anything, our plans always change, and this last afternoon, there's some news broke on John Souttar. What is, I don't want to say the inside track in it because I know you won't know, but you may have a wee clue.
I think that any reports from Turkey should be taken with a pinch of salt, and that's only my opinion on it because they seem to link several Rangers players to moves over there. But I'm actually assured that there is some legs in this one. There's certainly an interest from Trabzonspor. So whether or not that materialises, we'll need to obviously wait and see. But not an inside track. Absolutely not. I believe that Heart and Hand and David is kind of commented on it a wee bit this afternoon, saying it is a real link. So we just need to wait and see where it goes. With a year left, we're in a bit of a predicament regarding, John Souttar, because if he's not going to sign a deal, then is it worth though taking £1 million for him, that kind of thing? If he's not going to, I'm not sure. So, listen, I don't think John Souttar had the best season last year, guys. I really don't, and I think that if Connor Goldson had been making the level of mistakes he had been, then I think the outcry would have been far higher. That's for sure. So, I'm not sure that I'm ready to let him go, but I'm also not sure that he's a starter guaranteed nailed on for me either, Scott. So I'm still looking for another centre half to come in, regardless of what Russell Martin says. I'm still hopeful that we'll get another one in. So there's definitely some strengthening there, and I think John Souttar can be a good player for Rangers, but he needs to have a better season than he had last season.
Stevie, what fee would you take for John Souttar? What would it take you to say yes?
Dougie, I think he's like this. This may sound silly, but he's a Scotland international. He's at a good age. I'm looking for, if I'm going to be enticed into selling John Souttar, I'm looking for £2.5-3 million, if I'm quite honest. But with a year left, I'm not sure that you're going to get that, and that's why I'm not saying that. Would you sell him for £1 million? Is it really worth it? Just for £1 million, just to lose him at that point? So, and you've got the Scotland coefficient as well with it, and having to look at that kind of homegrown thing, Dougie. So I don't know what you think, but I mean, it would need to be a lot for me to be tempted to move into that. So
the timing's not great on it just now, obviously, with Panathinaikos on the horizon. I mean, it's only a bounce game, right? We're going to go on and talk about St George's, but I was playing football on Friday night, and it was funny because most of the guys in the dressing room are all Rangers fans, and we're talking about the state of the squad, and one of the big guys was basically very critical on some of the signings, talking about how we've only been signing from the lower leagues of English football, and go on to talk about Manny Fernandez, and he was basically saying he thinks he's a donkey. Now, I'll give my opinion in due course, right? But he was just a little bit concerned, and obviously with the goal that we conceded against Barnsley, it's his ball that's kind of lost possession. I wouldn't feel comfortable going into Panathinaikos with Fernandez and Giga as my back two, if I'm honest, and potentially to have slots in there and allows Aarons, I should say, to play his more natural position than being stuck out at left back to accommodate the captain. But at this point right now, I feel really uncomfortable about selling Suter, because even if we go and get somebody else in, they're not going to be ready for what we're at 9 days now until Panathinaikos. Gives me the fear. Such a big game, mass importance.
Do you know the big thing for me is around John Suter, and he's like a couple of these, like one other key player who we've got just now, who I do hope is having discussions with regards to his future. I think it's a lot whether John Suter really sees himself looking to hang around at Rangers, if he thinks he can make better buck elsewhere, if he wants to stay and have a crack at winning the league under Russell Martin. I think John Suter all of a sudden has found himself as a bit of a key member of this squad. He's got older. I mean, what is he? 27, 28 years old now, I think. So, I personally think that he'd be making a bit of a backward step if he was to move across to Turkey. And people, thanks to Laney and David, who have told us that Chelsea have just gone 2-0 up. Stevie's delighted.
Scott, you just said there that Suter's a big part player. Is he going to be a big key part of the Russell Martin team? Because Russell Martin obviously wants his defenders to play with the ball at their feet. Yeah. Is that John Suter? Is Suter maybe looking at it right now thinking, all right, you've brought in 2 new centre-halves, you're still linked with Connor Cody, where does that leave me? You know, Stevie, you've touched on he's a Scotland internationalist. He'll want to be playing every single week, and he's maybe looking at it thinking, right, Giga's playing. You don't sign a lone player from the English Premiership to come and sit on the bench. Wolves wouldn't allow that. You're linked with Connor Cody, who's got top-flight experience in English Premiership, played for England, went to World Cups and Euros with England. He comes and he starts. Suter's maybe looking at it, and my first thought when I seen the link is, I wonder if his agent's been touting him out because he's thinking, let's see what my options are. If I'm going to be sitting on the bench for Rangers and not a regular starter, let's see who else comes in for me. And the question then, as you said, Scott, is does John Suter go to Turkey? At this age, at this point in his career, is that the right move for him?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. As I say, stories broke this afternoon. I do wonder what it means if the story is real, and we think there's a bit of substance to it. I'd be interested to know what it means with the Connor Cody deal bubbling under the background. I would hate to think we're going to let John Suter go. And listen, we've all got an opinion on John Suter, whether he's good, bad or not. It's more about leaving us thin on the ground. We know about the coefficient detail. If John Suter was to leave, we do leave ourselves really thin on the ground in that centre-half area. More so when you look at guys like Leon King, Ben Davies, who rightly seem to be miles out of the picture just now, which I think everyone understands, and for the better of their careers, they should look to disappear as soon as possible. On the transfer information, we've been linked with numerous wingers over the last couple of weeks, and the boy for Crystal Palace has sort of came up again this afternoon. Dougie Kinnear seems to be someone that is on our radar, and quite a promising player by all accounts. Needless to say, Sky and all these English journalists down south have got him rated at something north of £10 million. Whether he's good as that or not is something that remains to be seen. Would you like us to see someone of his ilk arrive fairly shortly based on what we've seen so far?
I think the thing I really like about Raksaki, Scott, is of all the wingers that are being linked, most of them so far are left wingers. Yep. He's the first major rumour that's an actual right winger. He's not going to be a left winger who will play right wing. He's a right winger. That's his position. And I really like that. he will most likely, Stevie will probably know more than me here, he will most likely be a loan. Crystal Palace rate him very highly. I've got a few mates through work that are all based down south, all know him from coming through English football. They all think he's excellent. With a price tag of, say, £10 million, we're not paying that. We're not going to pay that for somebody who there's still a bit of risk around whether he'll be able to come in and cut it. Given he's an academy player through Palace, I know he's had a couple of good loans. He'll be a loan player, and it brings you into a whole different conversation again around how do you feel about loan players, because we are now entering into a period where we've got Giga already playing centre back. You could have a right mid there as a loan player. We're linked with a goalie, obviously Rushworth as well. How many loan players do you want in your starting 11? Because it's great to be linked with these quality, and you've seen it with Cherny last year, Tillman, Sima before that. You can bring in players that are out of your price range who can come in and deliver for you, which is really important when you want to win trophies, right? To me, it doesn't matter if it's your own player or a loan player that comes in and helps you. If you can get the best 11 out in that pitch every week that helps you win silverware, nobody questions whether it's a loan player or not. But when the going gets tough, loan players tend to be the first to check out. Cherny, I must admit, Cherny's probably a massive exception for that, because I thought he rolled his sleeves up when the going got tough last year, and I was really impressed with how Cherny's attitude changed as he progressed at Rangers. But if you have too many loan players, I just worry about their commitment when things get tough. But on Rak-Saki himself, I think he's the profile that Russell Martin's looking for in a winger. He's young, he's pacey. I can see the appeal. A Russell Martin team is based on wingers. They need the pace from out wide. They give you that space out there, and I think it ticks a lot of the boxes. But just a little bit worried about how many loans we're going to have.
Stevie, we've obviously seen a bit of movement in the sort of defensive areas. Fernandes, Giga coming in. Midfield, we've seen Rothwell, Cameron, who's been a deal that's been done previously. We know that Gassama is there or thereabouts, I think, based on what we find on social media. That area of the pitch down each side seems to be an area that we are talking lots and lots about, but we're just missing that scarf above the head picture just now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And look, I think it's a matter of priority that wingers come in. If Russell Martin is going to play this system, which we know he is, he has the building blocks, and actually, weirdly, our midfield is very strong. I also just think, slightly touching on, if I can just touch on Dougie's point a wee bit about loans and things like that, I understand where he's coming from. If you're looking at Giga, and if you're looking at Max Hayden's already been in there, if you were to get many more, understand it. But I also balance that with the fact that we might sign 10 players this summer.
Yeah.
So if 2 or 3 of them are loans and able to build as a bridge to take us where we need to be in the next window, then I understand it, and I can balance that off against each other. But going back to the wide players, Scott, seen them in training. I've seen the game so far. I thought we were pretty toothless against Bruges going forward, especially up front. Now, we've not got Eagleman, we've not got Dessers currently playing, so I understand that completely. But wide player-wise, there's a massive talent void there. There's no pace, there's no excitement in the team. Gassama is somebody that could add some of that. I think we all kind of agree that. And I think, Raksui is somebody that we would all kind of want to make that move as well. The interest in him is real. So let's see how that works out, if we can get that one over the line. If we got him for a year on loan, I wouldn't be the slightest bit concerned about that being a loan deal, because I think that he's got the quality to make it worthwhile for us. So with Gassama, we now just need to wait and see where that is. He's somebody that I've seen a wee bit of on YouTube and things since linked. He certainly looks promising, but YouTube can make anyone look promising, as we know, to our cost. So we just need to wait and see with it. But listen, I genuinely think Gassama, if you could get Ratsuya, I still think you need another one along with Cortez. You've got the young fella in there as well. There's a real need, and if you're going to ask Russell Martin to succeed, he needs the tools to succeed with. You could get by, and people will argue, and I completely understand this. You can get by with Dessers, Zigaman, and Danilo as your 9, and you could rotate and work that and move that along to a later window. We cannot play in this system with Kieran Dowell on the right hand side and young Curtis on the other as your first choices, boys. I'm sorry, you can't. You have to supply the manager with the tools, and we need excitement, we need pace, we need trickery in those positions that are going to unlock defences. And by the way, if you get them, it will make the job for Asgard, etc., a whole lot easier in midfield, because teams will gravitate towards those wide men. Teams will occupy themselves, which means spaces will become available for those attacking midfielders. So I understand why we've done what we should, and you're building a spine to the team. I've got no issues with that, and I'm not moaning about that. But what I am saying is that these wing players now need to be absolute priority for Rangers if Russell Martin's going to have any chance of succeeding. Certainly in the short to medium term, Panathinaikos is coming faster and faster round the corner, and we are not ready for that game. We don't have the personnel, and we don't have the training games for that to come about. So, there's a lot of work to be done, Scott, but wide men for me now, boys, is absolutely a priority now. It has to be. For this to succeed, it has to be.
And just on Gassama, we spoke about him a couple of times last week. It was set in stone. It was coming. Then there was a bit of nervousness about it. I think, taking into account the Sheffield Wednesday situation. I think since then I've seen a couple of bits and pieces that would suggest that there's more of a confidence. And without maybe going too much into the St George's camp during the week, I know you were lucky enough to speak to Russell Martin alongside in the press, Stevie. Did they give? I know he never gave anything away as such, but I know he was reasonably confident. I think he used the word confident indeed when he spoke about getting this chap in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, at a point we all thought it was done, bar the announcement. He hasn't trained. There's a few stories about him training with Rangers down there and things. He was never training with Rangers, so I don't think that's correct. He certainly didn't train when we were there. Didn't witness him training. I actually didn't see him about the St George's at all, although he was there as with Sheffield Wednesday anyway. But I didn't see him. I saw Sheffield Wednesday squad there, and he wasn't amongst that either. So we basically, as far as Rangers will tell you, are at the point of the deal's done. It's all signed. We've sent it back to them to complete the deal, and we're waiting on them pressing the complete button, signing whatever it is they need to sign or whatever. So that's the situation with it. Whether or not they've paused that to see if any other interest will come in or what, we will need to wait and see. But I think Rangers will be in a position over the next couple of days to say, we need this finalised. If it's not, we need to move on to plan our next venture in the transfer market. But I'm hopeful. Russell Martin seemed confident. He said it on camera that he was hopeful that he would be a Rangers player. So we just need to wait and hope that situation materialises, Scott. But there certainly seemed a confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is good, which is really good. Dougie, I wanted to take a little step away from the Shooter and Rick Sackey stories, which I suspect may move as time passes, and just have a look at the current squad. And two of the guys that I think there's been loads of noise over the summer of has been Cyril Dessers and Hamza Igaman, both which seem to have went a bit quiet. I think everyone expected Dessers to be playing in Greece just now, and everything that we heard last week was indicative that Igaman would be plying his trade in France in some way, shape or form. Both have went quiet. I think Russell Martin would be quite happy to start with both in and around the squad. The argument is, and it maybe covers what Stevie's just referred to, is the way that Russell Martin's looking for this Rangers team to play and the type of football they're looking to adapt. I'm reluctant to say that they'll definitely fit in.
There's a concern right now with Dessers and Igaman because they're not ready to play in a bounce game against Barnsley ahead of Panathinaikos. So you've got the short-term need of, we need somebody to lead that line. in a Champions League qualifier, which ultimately is must-win from a financial perspective, we don't have the two players that were key men last year. So you're relying on either Danilo or potentially Josh Gentles. Gentles obviously got the nod to start, but Barnsley potentially is just a glorified training exercise, so you don't want to read too much into that. Question marks on whether Dessers and Egeman will be ready for Panathinaikos. But beyond that and longer term, I love Egeman. I think Egeman is a quality player. And when the Lille rumours came out, I was sad. I was sad because, one, I didn't think you would get the fee that I think you could realise in 12 months for Egeman, because I think at this point, a fee of around £15 million might take him over to France.
Yep.
Whereas if he has another good 12 months, for example, it might be an extra £5-10 million on that. But I was sad as well because, do you know, he's one of these guys that gets the you excited when you're at the game. You want to see what he's going to do next because he's unpredictable. But is that going to suit Russell Martin? Russell Martin's potentially going to want somebody that presses the ball, who works hard. That's not really Egeman's game. And it's not really Dessers either. Dessers does put in a shift. I think that's why Barry Ferguson opted for Dessers as number 9 last year. He did follow instructions, I think, potentially better than what Egeman would. I just don't think either are what we need. And from, I just spoke about the financial element of Egeman. I think from a Dessers perspective, this is probably the right time to cash in on Dessers. What is he, 31 at the end of this year? 2 years left of his deal, 1 year left in his deal after this. So it's getting to the point.
After the season, yeah.
Yeah, one after this. It's getting to the point of this is the summer that you really want to cash in on Dessers. But there's also the flip side of it of you can rely on Dessers next year. He became a bit of a boo boy for a lot of the support. But Dessers is going to give you 20 plus goals. And there is another argument that if Russell Martin's style of football with the creativity coming from Asgard and from the wingers, he's going to need to just stand around the penalty box, and actually that's his game. Put the ball in the net. So I'm really I'm probably not overly fussed if Dessers stays because Athens don't match our valuation, but I would prefer to move Dessers on, and I'd be sad to see Egeman go. But if the two of them do leave, we need to replace them.
Stevie, it would be a shame if we bring in lots of quality, Tilo Asgard, and we bring in Gassama down one side and potentially Raksaki down another. And the one area that we maybe, I don't want to say neglect because I don't think that's fair, but there's no doubt we maybe need better. I don't think, incredibly, the jury's still out in Danilo. Ridiculous. And we know that Dessers will score goals. I do wonder how he fits into the system. And Egeman, I don't care what anyone says, I think there's still a bit of rawness about him. And I certainly don't think he fits into the Russell Martin way of playing. Where do you stand on this number 9, the figurehead, the guy that is going to score all the goals that come May, we're all delirious? And Ibrox.
Need better than what we have, but it's not the urgent need that it is at this moment in time, because the wide player thing has to be solved. At least in the 9 position, you have Dessers, Egeman and Danilo. So while we can say, and I firmly believe this, that they're not of the quality that we might need. I mean, I think we'd all take Turjaman in an absolute heartbeat as being the new number 9 that we all want to kind of champion and things like that. Somebody like that we would all love. But, Dessers has 50 goals in 2 years. Yeah. And 375 misses during that as well. And Danilo's never really fit. And Egeman, is a bit of a conundrum because he's absolutely quality, but I watch him half the time and wonder if he can be arsed. So will he get a Russell Martin team, and will he be able to run in the way that Russell Martin wants? I'm not sure. So, if you could merge all 3 of them, you would have the player you really want, but obviously you can't do that. So it's not for me an urgent priority, Scott. Mm-hmm. And that's difficult to say because as soon as one of them misses his chances against Panathinaikos, it's going to be an urgent situation for us. But we need wide men first. That needs to be the priority. So if I'm told we're only allowed a couple more in or whatever, then I'm choosing the wide men first. So number 9 can perhaps get parked and moved on a wee bit until at least January or something happens. But by the way, there's not much we can do if teams won't pay what we want for,
Absolutely.
Dessers or Danilo or Egaman. So I'm sure that Russell Martin would like a 9. I'm sure he would. But if we're stuck with 3, or not stuck with 3, but we have 3 already, and we have a valuation for these 3s, and teams won't miss it, then the teams won't hit it, then there's not much we can do about it. So I'm prepared to go with it, as risky as that's going to sound. It's not my choice, but my choice is we strengthen that wide positions first, Scott, because as I said, boys, I know it's repeating myself, we don't have any wingers of quality at this football club that are going to make the difference for us. We have 9s. Egaman, Dessers, Danilo will all pitch in. So let's just see, what we can do with the wide men first, and see if anybody does come in for, Dessers in the future. And we just need to wait and see how that plays out. I'm pretty sure that if we did get rid of one, then he would be replaced fairly sharpish.
Mm-hmm.
So that's perhaps a possibility. But yeah, sorry, I'm all about wide men and wingers at this very moment in time.
Yeah.
Do you know? I think it's a really good point, and I share with you your excitement about getting wingers in. I think, I think I said the last time we done the Sunday show, when we had wingers, or it looked like we had wingers, we almost coached the ability to be a winger out of them. I felt in a lot of occasions where we encouraged them to drift inside, to become inside forwards or whatever you want to call them, and we took away their ability to hold on to a touchline and run the byline and cross the ball in for your number 9 to knock it in. And it was almost like we coached that ability from them, and that's probably really unfair, and I'm sure it's certainly not true, but we were bringing in wingers that we thought, oh, he's great, he's going to be great pace, and before you know it, he's running into centre halves because he's cutting inside.
Can I just say something which it's not meaning to justify, but it's trying to explain the point I'm getting at. And Dougie, you'll maybe understand this. I don't think we can go with Kieran Dowell at right wing starting the season for a period of time, but I do think we can go with Dessers as number 9 for a period of time, because it's not as urgent as we're getting a right and a left-sided winger. And that's my point that I'm trying to make. I don't think we can do without those players, where we can soldier on with our 9 the way it is, knowing that he will score goals, whoever it is that gets the nod, but they won't, and we won't thrive as a team and as a unit if we don't get those wide players in. That's how I'm trying to say.
It's all about the profile of player that Russell Martin needs for his style of football, and he needs pacey wingers. Kieran Dowell, I'm pretty sure I could outpace Kieran and Dowell, and believe me, I am not fast anymore. But see, when I seen Kieran Dowell in that Barnsley lineup, I just honestly, it gave me PTSD that we're in 2025 and still playing Kieran Dowell. I mean, no harm to the guy, but I wanted him gone years ago, and it shows you where our weakness is in the squad right now, that you've got an academy player in young Finlay Curtis and Kieran Dowell playing in your wide position. So I'm completely with you, Stevie, that is the priority now between now and Panathinaikos. I seen somebody asking about who do you start in midfield versus Panathinaikos, and here's the question, Stevie. If we only bring in Gassama, or Gassama's not ready for Panathinaikos, Asgard has played in a wide position in the past. Would we be tempted to play the midfield 3 of Rothwell, Raskin and Diomande with Asgard in one of the wide positions, so that you can accommodate all 4 to give you that width still in that kind of 4-3-3 style? Or do we even think we might even play 5-3-2 against Panathinaikos?
We might be tempted, but I wouldn't. I've seen enough of Asgard. I don't want to drift too much into training stuff yet, but I've seen enough of him to be like, no, this boy's going to be centrally very, very positive for us. Lots of forward balls, lots of looking to play those key decisive passes and things like that. So no, and I can understand why you might have thought that, or we might even do that, but I wouldn't. We signed him to be an 8, go and be an 8. It's a difficult one, because if we don't get any wingers in the next couple of days, then we're heading into Panathinaikos really with our hands tied behind our back for this system, and that's the biggest worry I've got. But if you can fix that, it kind of changes it, because genuinely, I think they've bought genuine quality in Telo Asgard. I think that he will score goals for this club, and I think that early signs are that he's going to be a really good addition with those runs from midfield. So you've seen a wee bit about it against Bruges. We actually freed Kieran Dowell up quite a few times at the edge of the box, and he was reluctant to shoot or take it on. We freed Raskin a few times. Raskin hit a few over. He hit the goalie with one. If we can get those boys into those positions, like Diamandi got into that position and finished, because Diamandi can score. He's a good footballer, Diamandi, and I think he can get better for us. If we can do that, then those players will be big contributors for us. So I hope we're not in a position where we have to put one of the players out there, Dougie, although it's an option. But I do hope and think that things will happen before the 17th to rectify that, because that's our hope. As I said, I can understand Butland, I can understand Dessers, I can understand John Suter. I can't understand setting us up to fail with no wingers and that kind of thing, because you have to sort that before if we go into it. And if you can get those things in, I understand it's a work in progress. They can't sell 20 players in one summer. So there's going to be players that maybe in the long term we see replacements coming in, but I generally don't think we can do without them and be shuffling players about, mate.
See on Telo Asgard, obviously Andy Halliday's came out and said, and I don't want to stray too much into training, but Andy Halliday's came out and said that he's heard really positive things about this guy in training. The last two players that Rangers that he spoke about similarly is Egeman and Tillman. So it's great and really encouraging to hear that positivity coming out, because if I go back to that conversation with one of my mates in the dressing room on Friday night, he's talking about the League One standard of players that we are signing, and he said, it takes you back to the Mark Warburton days of shopping in that market. And I think it's massively different when you're bringing in guys like Asgard and Gassama, because Asgard, for one, is a Norwegian internationalist who has only been relegated from the Championship and found himself really unlucky to be so, because when he went there for the last 6 months, he still impressed in a poor Luton team. And I think Gassama, again, has found himself unfortunate to be in a team like Sheffield Wednesday with their financial difficulties, and you hear the Sheffield Wednesday fans, much like the Luton and the Wigan fans talking about Asgard, when they refer to the Gassama, they're talking about a player that in ordinary circumstances it would take £8 to £10 million to sign him. So I can understand some fans being a bit reserved about bringing in two guys from League One, but I think the quality of these guys hopefully will be a significant improvement on what some fans might expect from a League One player.
Yeah, listen, lots to I think speak about from that. I don't want to get too far much into this, but the one thing I do want to go, if we speak about Dessers, we can go into the new season, Stevie, and this is directed to yourself. If we can go into the new season as Dessers, as our number 9, excuse me, can we go into the new season with Jack Butland or Liam Kelly as our number 1?
Yeah, you can, and then as soon as he costs you against, Panathinaikos or Motherwell, then you're everybody's saying that we needed better and we didn't get him.
Yeah.
So the problem you've got with Jack Butland on is he's on so much money that he can't sit and be second choice. So Rangers are in a really difficult situation there, aren't we? So if Jack Butland can recover his form that he had before Southgate came up and put a hex on him, then he could be a fantastic goalkeeper for us. But there's a hell of a lot of water under the bridge from there, boys. There was a point last season, that Hibs game, for example, where the Hibs boys shot you, as well as having a traffic cone in goals because it was going through Jack Butland. He wasn't there. Yeah, and as much as I like Liam Kelly, I think Liam Kelly's a smashing goalie. I wonder if he could be week in, week out number 1 for Rangers. I think that's the biggest challenge he's got. So I would like us, just like the number 9, I would like us to have better players in those positions. But because we are such a mess, and we generally are such a mess, and being left such a mess from last season, we all knew it. They're going to have to prioritise positions. So we just need to wait and see what comes about, in the coming weeks. We do need a number 1. We need a number 9. We need 2 wingers. We need a centre back. It's prioritising the ones we can actually get to make us at least, put this jigsaw together at least best we can. That there's going to be players in it that aren't our first choice. So it's a very, very difficult one. I could sit here and go, yeah, give Jack Butland another go, but fine well, and Dougie will probably say the same thing, that he's more than capable of throwing one in at any minute, as we've seen and as his last year of form has proved. So it's a really difficult question. The real one, I suppose, is would you if you could get rid of Jack or get another one in, would you? The answer is yes. Could you get rid of Cyril Dessers and bring in a 9 if you could? Could you sell Danilo or Igaman if you would? Then the answer to these are yes. And I think that's probably where Russell Martin was hinting at today when the second part of his interview came out, where he talked about it, as if they could get better, if these things were available, then they would. And I think that's basically exactly where you are. Jack Butland in that first 6 months was unstoppable. We talked about him going back to England for 10 million plus. We talked about him going in the England recall. And since that moment, he's completely collapsed to the point where you wouldn't have him. So there's a lot of work to be done for Jack. Although I will say Jack was excellent in training. I've seen some of the saves he was making was incredible. Could he be back? We'll need to find out. But Scott, honestly, it's so difficult because there's so much to be done. Where's your priorities? And that's the biggest question for Russell Martin. And on a budget, we don't have unlimited money. We have a limited budget, which we're having to stretch to make sure that we get the players in. And we probably need, 2-3 wingers. You're spending money on Gassama, 2.5 million. You're spending money on boys on loan and things like that. So it's a conundrum. It really, really is. I don't want to commit to Jack Butland and then watch him throw one in against Panathinaikos. That's my biggest issue.
Dougie, I'm going to ask Stevie to speak to us a little bit about his trip down south last week. However, before we get to that, I'm really keen to know where you stand on the goalkeeper jersey for next season. Not necessarily Panathinaikos, but for next season. Are we comfortable sort of going into match day 1 with Jack Butland as or Liam Kelly indeed as your number 1, assuming it's going to be one or t'other?
Do you know, I didn't like Russell Martin saying he won't have a number 1 goalie. He wants to competing for the jersey, and I understand why he says that, and whether he means it is another matter. For me, there's certain positions that you have a number 1 player and then you have a backup. And for me, Liam Kelly is a suitable backup. He is not a number 1. So the eyes are then on Jack Butland. Is he your number 1 goalie? And if it was a Jack Butland of the first 6 months, when he was being talked about an England call-up and moves back down to the English Premiership, I think everyone would be sitting here really comfortable right now. But the reality is, Jack Butland was a traffic cone, as Stevie said, in certain games last season. And actually, you can go back to the League Cup final and that first 6 months of his period as well, where he ultimately cost us a trophy there as well. And that's the risk for me, is that Jack Butland has now shown what he is capable of in a bad way. And there's a lot of players at Rangers that get a lot of criticism. You think of James Tavernier, for example, who for me has been a solid servant in his entire time here. Jack Butland hasn't had the same level of stick that someone like James Tavernier has, and he's cost his trophies, he's cost his games. I think, Stevie, used the phrase he's burnt bridges, and I think he has burnt bridges with a lot of support. And I think if he's in goals for the first game of the season, I think there's a real good feel good factor about the new era right now. And I think the minute he costs a game, you'll get the boo boys, you'll get the negativity straight in his back. And the big question for Jack Butland is not necessarily on ability, because you've seen how he can win you games single-handedly during periods. It's whether he's got the mentality that can he bounce back from the previous form that he's had, and I'm not convinced he's got the mentality. Speaks well, seems like a really good guy. I need my goalkeeper. I love a mad goalkeeper for one, right? Alan McGregor, Andy Gorham, these guys were mad. Jack Butland seems too nice. I want a mad goalie. But can he recover? The jury's out for me. And I think to Stevie's point, and it's completely bang on, we would all love to move Butland out and bring a new goalie in, move Dessers out, bring a new number 9 in. It's not as easy as that. It's not Champ Manager. You don't just transfer list a player and all of a sudden you've got £10 million bids coming in for Jack Butland. These are guys on big wages that when you start looking to move Jack Butland on, given his previous form, you're maybe only looking at a couple of million max to get him, but he'll want a payoff before he leaves, and whether there's money there, so you're then having to go and spend money that you potentially would want to spend elsewhere, and that's the key thing for me is in this summer when we have so many positions needing strengthened, is it the priority? And the answer's probably no. But if we get the bid and Rushworth is somebody that we're interested in, is available and keen to come, I could see it happening. But I'm with Stevie. Priorities lie elsewhere. But I do have my concerns about Butland.
See, the other problem he's got is, before I kind of go on a wee bit to the training, Scott, sorry. If he starts the season with Butland, Tav at right back, Dessers as your 9, John Souttar at centre back, and it goes tits up, then we all know the reaction to that will be Russell Martin doesn't have an extensive list of support as it is. And if he starts like that and it goes wrong, then we were told this would be a fresh start. We were told this is going to be new. We were told, and it's still the same players letting us down. And it's really difficult to argue with that because that is your same players letting you down. So Russell Martin has got a hell of a job. A hell of a job, and we need to be patient and give him as much support as it can. I genuinely think Panathinaikos is too soon. I really do. The next couple of days will tell us, and we need some severe action the next couple of days. Hopefully, even then, are they going to be ready? I really don't think so. But we need to somehow, we need to negotiate that for him to have a good start. Then we need to go to Motherwell and start well, and if that doesn't happen and those players are in place, as Dougie pointed at, then it's difficult for Russell already, and we cannot afford to have a negative start. And this is going to take time. It's going to take patience. But how patient is this support? Because we've seen it already at halftime against Bruges.
I was just about to say it, Stevie. We keep calling for patience. Russell Martin needs it to instill his philosophy. New players coming in and settling and all that good stuff. But see, when you've got supporters booing at half time of a glorified training drill, that's when you know you're at Glasgow Rangers. There's no room for dropping points. I actually watched a podcast recently, and it was Defoe and Bassey that were on it, and Defoe was talking about that mindset, saying to Calvin Bassey that he'll not recognise it at this stage, but it's only in later years that he'll realise just what a good grounding that was for him going into football, to have that mindset of winning every game. Defoe said if you drop points, we all know this, right? You drop points, you draw a game, you do not leave your house. You cannot walk around Glasgow city centre when you drop points. That's the reality at Rangers. We need to win, and we need to win instantly. I'm afraid there's no bedding in period. And if, to your point, Stevie, about Panathinaikos being too soon, I fear it is as well. And if we get knocked out of the Champions League at the first qualifier, I'm afraid the pitchforks will already be getting sharpened for Russell Martin, which is unfair.
Bit of a concern for sure. So you've switched my agenda around a little bit there, which I'm grateful for, because it's great when you guys do that. So we've basically decided that we don't think we're ready for Panathinaikos, which I think I'm kind of on the same page with. I don't think Panathinaikos are half as good as we think they are. There's obviously an argument of how ready we are, which I totally get. Stevie, I do want to hear a little bit from you on the St George's camp that you were lucky enough to be in and around last week rather. So tell us a little bit about that, what the place was like in general. I'm really keen to know. I mean, it looked like it was fantastic from the footage we've seen within the sort of the group. It looked a really exciting place to be. Tell us about it, and I'll come back with a couple of bits on the training, if you don't mind.
First of all, sensational place to visit. It was roasting hot. I think it was 32, 33 degrees, so something similar to what we had the last couple of days in Scotland, but the actual place was incredible. I'll tell you about the day. We were there for 9 o'clock, and we immediately had a sit down with Lyle Cameron. So we spoke to him first. Lovely, lovely young lad, very articulate, very bright. That's available to watch on our YouTube channels and listen to on the podcast sites. And then we went and watched training. Training was 2 hours long. I've never seen Joshua Barry so geeked out and happy in all my life. He was fully immersed in everything. We were allowed to film and do whatever we wanted, coverage wise, right up until they began to practice for Barnsley. Now, in the practice, so you would have seen the training videos. You had your normal kind of start and set up. Then you had some kind of short-sided games, really small, like they're in a small kind of box area doing one-on-one passing and stuff like that. And then they went to bigger games. Now there was 3 teams, and you basically it was one goal and you're off as soon as you score. But there was players around the side, and it's all about kind of passing the quicker. All the footage is there for people to go and check out. It was really quite interesting. And then they went into the bit where you weren't allowed to film, and during that there was set pieces, corners, free kicks outside the box, defending and attacking. Goal kicks, believe it or not, working it out from the back and playing a press, and not playing the press, and how to advance from goal kick. Throw-ins, unbelievable. Sitting practicing, I know, practicing throw-ins and everything else. So it was They were a good 30 minutes doing that, and then they went from there to actual like setup of how to move. And during this, and trying to explain it to you, so you were set up in your 2-11s, and during that time you would break from the back, and you would only go so far. You're not practicing to score. You're practicing to play out. You're practicing positions and where to move, and that's how they did it. And then the final kind of bit of it was one-on-one shooting. You got your squad where you have the kind of mannequins all up, and you were to dribble around them and see who was doing what. So it was very interesting. And look, I said it before, I'll say it again. Telo Asgard sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Like an absolute sore thumb. His movement is terrific. He's elegant on the ball. And see, during these games, you don't notice then 1 minute he gets it and he slides somebody through, whether it's down the side or it's playing it to Danilo. Danilo scored 5 or 6 goals, which is not difficult considering he's the only striker at this moment in time. Raskin was very busy. Diamandi was good. These players kind of took you. By the way, I thought that Giga strolled it. I thought he looked extremely comfortable. I wasn't the only one that picked up on that. He looks like he plays a game with a cigar in his mouth. Never really phased, never really overexerts himself, just ultimately comfortable. Whether or not that will happen in games, we need to fingers crossed and hope for that. And yeah, Russell Martin speaks a lot about Josh Gentles, which you can see why. He is somebody that in a few years' time we hope can be something for us. But, Asgard was exceptional. Rothwell sat in the 6th position, which was interesting. The actual dynamic of how they set up, it was Asgard left, Rothwell 6, and Diamandi on the other side of them 3. And that's how they set up their midfield. And the wingers are very wide. They stay wide, and your front man drops in, and the 8s go right up beside him. So at times you're almost playing with a front 3, and it's interesting how they do it. So your back 4 is fairly steady, and Rothwell sits. So and Jack plays extremely high, as we saw yesterday, which is when it becomes a problem if you get nicked like you did yesterday. But that was it. After training, we went back in and we spoke to Russell Martin. You would have seen the first and second part of that. There's a third part to come out later in the week. And also, we spoke to Telo Asgard, that's already been up on the site, and Manny Fernandez, who is a really excellent young man. Really, really. This is a sign of old age, Scott. See, we were talking about playing in front of 70,000 people, and I said that'll be for Burkina Faso for his international. Of course, that's Giga, isn't it? So I'm all over the place with that. So we had a good conversation with him. A lovely boy, 8 brothers and sisters he's got.
Wow.
And he's been through an amazing time in his life, and honestly, a lovely, lovely boy. So yeah, that was our day. There'll be more coverage. I think Fernandez' interview goes out tomorrow. Russell Martin again, his interview is out on Tuesday, if I've got my days right. So that was the course of the day. We were there for a full day. We left, I think, about 4 o'clock, and it was lovely. A lot of time spent with Russell Martin. Really open, really engaging, really welcoming, and a really, really nice guy. I said it today online. You can see why he's so well liked by players and everybody he's worked with and staff and everything else. That doesn't matter a jot when it comes to crossing the white line and playing the game. But he's a really lovely guy, self-deprecating. He loves a joke and he loves a giggle about himself, and he's really, really nice guy. But he's also serious. He's also serious when it needs it. He handed out a few bollikins and things like that. So that was it, Scott. That was the day. Asgard, really impressive. Rothwell, cool, calm and collected. I kept my eye on them. Max Aarons played at left back for most of that, which was interesting. A couple of things. Dessers and Eagleman didn't train with the group. Neither did Ridvan. Neither did Fraser, and neither did McCausland. All of them trained on their own, doing some running work. There was nobody injured, just catching up. And then after everybody left, they then went and done ball work and a training session, which was largely like the one that we had just watched from what I could only see in a couple of minutes. Young Xander Hutton worked on some stuff at the end with Russell Martin as well. But it looked a good group. Like, there was a lot of off field when they were walking to and from. There's a lot of kind of voices, a lot of giggling, a lot of laughing, things like that. So, what can you really take from training? I'm not sure, but it's certainly an insight.
Dougie, one of the things that I've been really impressed with, Rangers TV Rangers are good enough to put up the training session edited down into a sort of likeable chunk. And the thing that I've seen that I've really, really, really liked, and Stevie's kind of alluded to it there, is there's a lot of positivity from the coaching staff. So you got Mike Williamson and Matty Gell and Russell Martin out, do you know what I mean? Giving the guys a lot of sort of stopping short of high-fiving them, but really encouraging them, you know what I mean? Well done, Bailey, that's great, Bailey. Well done, Ross, that's great, Ross. Referencing Josh Gentles. But he's also doing it with the players that maybe look like they do need a cuddle. I've heard them say to Oscar Cortez a couple of times, well done, Oscar. Do you know, we're trying to promote just that, giving them a bit of a spur on, I think, because these guys maybe previously last season, it just hasn't happened for them. Nothing to say well this year, by the way, but it's just that difference of, we speak regularly on podcasts about the importance of man management to some players with big egos, some players that hype within themselves when the chips are down and don't come out. He seems like being someone who is going to encourage them, he's going to try and help them, and he's going to give them all the possible tools that they can possibly have. And as Stevie says, once they cross the white line, his job's done. But I'm really impressed with the comms from the coaching team to the players as they're training.
Yeah, there's multiple points to be made to your question there, Scott. I think the first thing that I'd call out is I think there was a real disconnect at the end of last season between the club and the supporters. And I think the Rangers content on social media in particular over the summer has been first class. The unveil videos of the players is a next level that we've never seen before at this club. I think those training videos just now is just helping supporters buy into what the manager's currently working with. And I think it's helping create a little bit of a positive feel-good factor right now around pre-season. So fair play to the club. I think they've got that right. One point about the manager is when you're playing football, and I'm sure this is the same for anyone, right? When you're working for a boss, I think you try a little bit harder when you like your boss and when you have a good relationship with your boss. You want to, you go back to the Sir Alex Ferguson era at Man United. You hear class in '92 talking about how they would have walked barefoot over broken glass through burning houses to play for Sir Alex Ferguson, and that's really important. What was the club? Was it Southampton that? Was it Southampton when he got promoted that he put the letters through the doors of all the players the night after the playoff final, and all the players said it was just a brilliant gesture. Yeah. I think Russell Martin. So he wasn't a lot of people's number one choice. I think I'm seeing a lot of things to be really encouraged about Russell Martin at the moment, but the number one thing is just that relationship with his players. I think players will really want to play for Russell Martin. And it takes me into my third and final point is he's obviously signing a lot of new players and all eyes are on those new players. But you've got to think about the existing squad. There will be players in our existing squad who will actually naturally suit Russell Martin's style, whether that be his man management style or his playing style, more than they suited the previous regime. You know, I think, Stevie, you mentioned Diomande in Preston in training. I think Diomande's the one to really watch go leaps and bounds under Russell Martin. I think he could really excel in the Russell Martin system. But do you know a name, Stevie, I was going to throw at you, because I can see a lot of comments asking where Cortez was. But do you know who grabbed my attention in one of the training videos? Because I just seen a different intensity from his play. You know, you can see the Russell Martin pace about the game. Um, was Nadeem Barami. I thought Barami looked really, really sharp in one of the videos, and he won't be the number 1, number 10, you know, at the front of that pivot of midfield. That will be Asgard. But I looked at it and I thought, I wonder if Bayrami's someone that's going to push Asgard to be better, because he knows he's got an internationalist who's really breathing down his neck to get into the team. What did you think, Stevie, when you were watching guys like Bayrami? Did you get a different feel from him when you're actually watching him in the flesh?
I'm going to bring this up, if that's all right, just from Bluebells, our Blue as well. He's stuck this up, and he donates £10 to the show as well. Sorry, Scott, we're trying to do that at the same time. I apologise. Really appreciate the donation, Bluebells. Look, what I would say about the training drill, particularly the shooting, and I think that's what grabs everybody's attention. I've talked a wee bit about what he was like during the stuff. Asgard's finishing was exceptional, lashing it into top corner stuff. Accuracy, absolutely brilliant. Anyone else that stuck out from what you watched? Bayrami is technically excellent, Dougie. On the ball, really good. It's off the ball where he struggled. Now, he actually got a bit of a tailing off, because there was a throw and he flicked it on and Russell Martin stopped it. And he says, why are you flicking that on? Take it on your chest down and go from there. So there was an urge of, you can do that. You're better than that. You know, take it, take a touch, play the pass. Tav got it a few times, and this is where he was talking about habits. So when they were playing out, the idea of playing out to the side and then getting the sixes to come in and take that point, Tav was going down the line and there was nobody there, and it was stop, back to the start again, and we do it all over again. So that was interesting a few times, but there wasn't anyone that disappointed me on training. I think Telo Asgard stuck out because, one, you're watching him and you are looking at what you bought and paid the money for. Big Fernandez looks comfortable, but that is a learning process with him. We saw it in Barnsley. He's going to need to be on it all the time. Lyle Cameron is busy. Bayrami was busy. Danilo, as I said, scored a lot of goals. Jack Butland made a lot of really good saves. Really, really good saves. You seen him make a really good save against Barnsley as well, down low. He got down low and got a good hand hit. So that was good. Giga, as I said, kind of strolled it. So Bayrami was a quieter session, but again, when he was shooting, his shooting is really good. People are asking about Oscar Cortez. Cortez was involved in the training games, has been involved in goals, but there wasn't, to put it in kind of context, it wasn't like they were having one-on-one drills where the winger goes and tries to take on the defenders. It wasn't anything like that. He was part of the team and part of the movement. A lot of this session was to do with the shape and how they move out and how they're going to counteract things and how he wants them to play out, how they get out of tight spaces. The finishing drills in that are for your strikers, you know, your Danilos, your Cortezes. That's when you look at these guys kind of lashing them in. And by the way, Kieran Wright, who's kind of like the third choice, he made a lot of unbelievable saves. You know, we're never going to see him. He's like Andy Firth, isn't he? So right. But I couldn't believe it, because he dovetails in. So Jack goes in and then he comes out. Liam goes in, he comes out, and Kieran Wright goes in. And some of the saves that Kieran Wright was making were tremendous. Really good saves. Young boy wise, once one of the boys asking, what about the young boys? As I said, Gentles is going to be good, but he needs experience into bulk up. Finlay Curtis is rapid. Really, as a flying machine. Can he progress? Can he get time. Bailey Rice is a complete conundrum. Now, people were asking who was taking set pieces. Bailey Rice was taking them, Tavernier was taking them, Max Aaron was taking them, and so was Joe Rothwell. So you had a real mix of people. Bailey Rice is somebody that I look at and think he looks like he is so relaxed. He looks so laid back that sometimes that's an issue. And you need to what a passing ability he's got on him. He can pass the ball unbelievably, but sometimes you watch him and you think he's daydreaming, but it's his style. He's so laid back. He's so in that moment. Bailey Rice, I think, will go out on loan later in the month if there's nothing there. By August, by late August, I think Bailey Rice will go out on loan. I think he could do with it as well. It depends on this kind of link up they may or may not have that's coming up where you can put players. I really do think that a year, 6 months in the Championship could do the likes of Bailey Rice a massive amount of good. So he needs to play in an environment where he needs to play the ball and needs to play it quickly and needs to move it around and needs to feel that kind of aggression because he's not played football for nearly a year, 2 years, more or less. And apart from fleeting B team games, he needs experience. That's where the Lowland League would have been done and would have been really good for him, Scott. So, yeah, it was certainly really worthwhile. It was, as I said, young Joshua Barry was completely geeked out. He was loving every second of it, and I was just happy to be watching and seeing what it was like for them. And yeah, they'll have more strenuous days. That was one of their only days. They only done one session because they've been doing double sessions. That was only one of the days. So, but it was still more than worthwhile.
Stevie, just going back to the point about the shooting drill, it's great to hear comments about, Bayrami being a really good shooter, for example, and you spoke about Cortez being one of the guys hitting the shots. Asgard actually has a really good record for putting the ball in the net at his previous clubs as well. I was quite shocked when I was watching one of the podcasts earlier in the summer talking about our goals from midfield last year, that we only had, so from a midfield perspective, we had 3 players joint top goal scorer outside of the forward line with a grand total of 4. And it's no surprise, Dessers we relied on so heavily throughout the season to get his goals, but we need to get goals from outside of that number 9 position, and that's why the wingers are so important, but that's where Asgard is going to be really key as well. I mean, he drops out the team, bringing in Bayrami potentially is really important because we need to be scoring. We need to have other players chipping in with goals other than Cyril Dessers or whoever's leading the line.
100%. Your 2 attacking midfield positions, you've got Raskin, Diamande, Asgard, Bayrami and Cameron vying for those positions. Your 6 is going to be Rothwell. Raskin will probably dovetail in there at times as well. But I'm looking for a big season from Diamande, especially. I think he could be key. Russell Martin's already spoken about, those players kind of relearning those roles and things like that. So Diamande, I should mention as well, he can shoot in the shooting drills. Lovely left foot. It's an elegance of a left footer sometimes. I've watched Cole Palmer roll in 2 identical goals tonight with his left foot. Diamande can finish, not as well as Cole Palmer, but otherwise he wouldn't be here. However, he can certainly finish, and he was one of the ones that stood out, curling the ball in from shots as well. So, yeah, Dougie, I think you're right. And I think as well, see the way that Russell Martin plays, he plays to free the 8s. And we've seen it against Bruges. It happened. I've already mentioned that a few times. We need an uplift of goals from not only the middle, but from wide. We cannot rely on Cyril Dessers. And not because we can't rely on him, because we've over-relied on him at times. 50 goals, and we pan the guy because he misses chances. But he misses chances because at times he's the only one there to be taking them and stuff. So you're absolutely right. We need more goal threat. And by the way, we also need to start pitching in. I think 14 goals Southampton got under Russell Martin from set pieces. We need to start making those margins count, and we've got the big guys now, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think there's a lot to be excited about. I know there's more to come, but I think as we stand just now, I think we can be quite quite excited. Listen, it's a busy week in the network. Steve, you're back tomorrow with the guys for the Monday night gig at 8 o'clock, I think it is tomorrow, isn't it?
Yes, 8 o'clock. What do we have this week? We have the Monday show, 8 o'clock live. We have Wednesday, Kenny and I going live with our show. We'll be back on Friday night, should be 7 p.m. That's variable with people's kind of availability. We'll be back if anyone signs, breaking news. And we have a couple of bounce games today, closed this week behind closed doors. I believe that we're playing Dunfermline and Hamilton behind closed doors this week, so that's going to be all geared up to getting the players ready for Panathinaikos, and and then it's Monday night show, Panathinaikos on the Tuesday, and live from the gantry. So it's all go, Scott. We've got the live show coming up at Walters as well, so there is so much happening. It's a really good time. Obviously this show back tonight it's all go.
And if people are still looking to get in around Walters and Rutherglen that Friday night, the end of the month, how can they go about doing that?
Contact Walters. I believe there's 100 or so tickets, and we're 3/4 of the way sold. So there's only 20, 30 or so tickets left. And if people want to grab them, we can message Walters on Facebook or Instagram. They're £7 a piece. Of that £7, £2 goes to Rangers Charity Foundation, who we're supporting on the night. There will be a live show, couple of live shows actually. I believe we're going to split it, so you'll get to see all the podders, and then we'll do a kind of a raffle and a bit of a kind of discussion corners, take a few points from the audience and things, and then Jodie Pollock plays. So it should be a good night. Certainly 3-4 hours of Rangers chat, and hopefully we're all positive about signings and about Panathinaikos and the season starting the very next day. So yeah, it's a busy time. It's great, Scott. We're hoping to take the show live to quite a few places. We've already been booked to go to Northern Ireland next March, which we cannot wait for. Hopefully we'll be going to Blackpool and things like that as well. So really excited, really looking forward to it. Really appreciate everyone's support, because the people that are watching, the people that are subscribing on YouTube, the people that have joined the membership, it's all fantastic, and the rise of the podcast has been brilliant. So really appreciate it.
Steve, I'm really glad you joined us for the first one this season. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, boys. Good luck with it. I'll be watching on. Cheryl's a lot more pretty than I am, so she'll add a different dynamic. And she's got better hair, so hopefully the show goes from strength to strength. But look, this is a long time overdue. Delighted to have the show again, and do your thing, boys. I'm looking forward to it.
Dougie, first one back in the new season, north of 4,000 people looking in across Facebook, YouTube and X, which is not a bad start. So again, as always, echo my thanks to you. It's always good to see you, mate.
Yeah, great for everyone tuning in. They're brilliant numbers. I've seen a lot of really positive comments in there as well. I think we handled the rustiness well, Scott, and I'm sure Cheryl said she was going to watch, so a big shout out to Cheryl, who's in Spain right now, and looking forward to getting back on as a 3 as well. But echo Scott's words, Stevie, good to have you on, and looking forward to more episodes.
Yeah, indeed. Don't forget, I would like to say an extended thanks to the Sunday Show sponsor, iSport, who are going to be looking after us for the course of the season, and of course all the sponsors that look after us and help us to do what we do: Rhino Express, Clyde View, Athlone Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning and Black Rooster, all looking over us and looking after us rather over the course of the season. If you aren't following us yet, you're doing podcasting wrong. Make sure you're subscribing to everything we're doing. You get a notification each time we issue any sort of publication. Breaking news is really important, of course, when we're first on the button as often as we can be. If there's new signings or news that you want to be interested in, this will be the place to find it. So please make sure you are subscribing and liking and commenting, and just get yourself involved. The guys are back tomorrow night, Monday night, the first of a brand new week. Let's see what happens in the Rangers world next week. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Good night.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clyde View Joinery, Athlone Industrial Solutions Limited and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.